Peace, everybody. So today we have a very special episode on the Solar Healing Show. This is the Solar Alchemist speaking, and I want to go over the metabolic system, right? And how we need to protect the liver and feed the gut. And when you look at the entire molecular mechanism of every single one of these 8 subcellular pathologies that I'm going to list you today, none of them have a medicine. None of them are druggable. All of them are foodable. And you'll understand what I'm talking about shortly. So the key to the kingdom is that it is not about obesity at all. It is about our metabolic dysfunction and that's happening within our body. And anyone can get it. Anyone. It doesn't matter if you are obese or if you are slimmer, but if you are not, if your metabolic system is not functioning right, you can also get all these types of diseases and ailments. So something I want to point out is something that pokes a hole actually within our gut is the lack of our fiber. So if you do not have fiber, you are not feeding the gut. In fact, if you are not feeding your intestinal bacteria or your microbiome, they will feed on you. So they will actually dissolve the mucus layer within your intestine that surrounds your epithelial cells as the barrier, and this is probably one of the reasons of IBS or inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel disease is the bacteria is supposed to be separated from your intestinal cell by this layer. So in addition to that, your colon or your colonic bacteria actually eats soluble fiber and turns them into short chain fatty acids. And it turns out that those are actually anti-inflammatory and also insulin. And so that means it helps regulate our insulin levels and brings our blood sugar levels down. So insoluble fiber is there's a barrier function that protects the liver. And so the insoluble fiber that we eat, like the roughage, a lot of our greens, cabbage and kale and all those things, they act as a barrier and prevent the transport of monodisaccharides and other amino acids from the duodenum into the portal vein, which actually goes and protects our liver. So it protects our liver from the tsunami of harmful bacteria if fiber is not there. So when you take the fiber out of your diet, which a lot of the standard American diet does, it harms the body and thereby is not able to metabolize a lot of our food in a healthy way. So type 2 diabetes, for instance, hypertension, lipid problems, cardiovascular disease, dementia, all of these diseases, these are chronic metabolic diseases that doctors can actually bill for, even cancer, right? They all have CPT codes, ICD-11 codes. Doctors get paid for these, right? These are manifestations of the real diseases because the real disease are the subcellular pathologies of the metabolic system that I'm going to go over that are underneath each of these. So type 2 diabetes is called a disease, but it's not. It's only a symptom of a disease. And the reason I can tell you that is because they'll say there is no cure for it. In fact, the only treatment they would say is probably food. And I'll tell you why later because of those 8 pathologies. So those are not diseases. This is actually what's going on in the liver that's happening in the liver that's the disease. Even with your blood pressure, ultimately it's what's happening inside those endothelial cells, which are forming the barrier between the vessels and the tissue and control the flow of substances and fluid of that tissue within our disease. That's what makes the disease. It's what's going on underneath there within our liver. So all these medicines these doctors throw at these various chronic ailments and diseases, they are treating the symptoms of the disease and not the underlying pathology of it. So it's like giving aspirin to a patient with a brain tumor because they have a headache. The problem is still going to be there. So we have to figure out what is the problem. And what I have here is these 8 subcellular pathologies that I believe is actually the root cause of the problem. So we have glycation, oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, insulin resistance, membrane instability, inflammation, epigenetics, and autophagy. These are 8 subcellular pathologies that are going on happening within the cell that I'm gonna give to you, and I believe you'll find these very helpful. So glycation is number 1, and that's a process which is caused by the presence of an excess glucose or sugar within your skin fibers. So this excess actually triggers an internal reaction in which the sugar molecules cling to your proteins within your body. So this makes your proteins actually less flexible and aggravated, and it leads to dysfunction within that protein. And this also leads to an impaired or dysfunctional elasticity within your tissues and your blood vessels in your skin. Doctors say that the damage from the glycation on your fibers can't be reversed or repaired. So proteins that are overwhelmed with this glycation process lose their ability to properly function with all the surrounding cells within that body. All the fruits and vegetables, as well as things like dark chocolate, I would even say cacao, herbal teas, have powerful antioxidants that help protect the cells from glycation. Specifically like blueberries, pomegranate, certain white teas are super antioxidants, which actually helps protect your cells from that protein. That leads to oxidative stress. So this is caused by an imbalance between the production and the accumulation of oxygen reactive species. So you have these within your cells and tissues, and that's the ability to detoxify these reactive products every time this reaction occurs throws off a little bit of those oxygen species, which causes damage to these proteins that I'm talking about, these lipids, and unless it's quenched by what? Antioxidants, those berries I'm talking about. The problem is processed foods are low in antioxidants. So these reactive oxygen species lead to all sorts of damage, including an unfolded protein response, meaning that the insulin receptor molecule can't fold, and now you have insulin resistance or deficiency, and now you have diabetes, right? Number 3, mitochondrial dysfunction. So that's your mitochondria is where you burn energy. Unfortunately, processed foods and sugars damage your cells, causing mitochondrial dysfunction. The head of Joslin Diabetes Institute did a study actually in 2019, right, where he basically did a study saying that fructose makes mitochondria worse and glucose makes it work worse as well. And the American Diabetes Association doesn't even say that sugar is bad. I feel like they're like a lobbying group for diabetes so they can have more donations. That's a whole another different story. So I just don't feel like these big pharma, big corporations are actually within the business of actually helping. I feel like it's more like promoting something like, or not, like I said, not going along and treating the underlying disease that's going on within your metabolic function or your physiology. So number 4 is insulin resistance, right? So insulin resistance, this happens when the cells in your muscles, fats, and liver don't respond as they should. Especially, like I said, the liver, like I said in the beginning, we have to protect the liver and feed the gut. So insulin is a hormone your pancreas actually makes that's essential for regulating your blood sugar or your glucose, like I said, levels. And the lack of insulin action on your kidneys is actually what causes the kidneys to fail. So under normal circumstances, insulin functions allow your bodies to break down your food into glucose or sugar, which is your body's main source of energy. So you need that glucose. Glucose then enters your bloodstream, and then it signals your pancreas to release insulin. By that, your insulin helps your glucose in your blood into your muscle, your fat, your liver, and so it can store that for energy later. And so when glucose actually enters your cells and the levels in your bloodstream decrease, it actually signals your pancreas to stop producing the insulin, and that's what happens. That's why we need better mitochondrial stability or function. Number 5, membrane instability. So causes of the membrane, what causes your membrane to actually damage includes the accumulation of free fatty acids, inside and out of your cardiovascular cells, and increased amounts of toxic fatty acids, right? So this is all about omega-3s and your omega-6s. Omega-3s allow for membrane stability, or membrane stability is also known as membrane fluidity. So if you have more omega-6s, you don't have that, or saturated fats. So keeping your membranes into shape is super important. What I'm talking about is, like I said, your omega-3s, and to break those up, you have your DHAs, your EPAs, and your ALAs. So DHAs and EPAs are found within your seafood, like your kelp, your fish oils. ALAs are actually found within your plants. So, like I said, you have like salmon, mackerel, flax seeds, chia seeds. This is how you get your omega-3s and your omega-6s with those ALAs and EPAs. You need those for membrane stability so that you'll be able to metabolize those different cells properly, right? So inflammation. We all have heard about inflammation. Inflammation is basically your body's natural response to protect itself against harm. So there are 2 types: acute and chronic inflammation. And you probably know more about acute, like when you bang your knee or cut your finger, you have your immune system sends like an army basically of white blood cells to surround and protect the area. So it creates like this visible like swelling. That's like acute inflammation. But I'm talking about chronic inflammation, which happens whether you see it or not within your system, and especially affects, and a lot of inflammation actually starts within your gut. So basically, if you cause dysfunction of those tight junctions that are actually within your cell walls in your gut, you're going to get inflammation every single time. Excuse me. And it resonates throughout the body, especially your liver. And that leads that leads to insulin resistance. So when you increase the inability to break down fat tissues, it activates inflammatory responses to your liver. And the production is also called cytokines, I believe it's called. And the cytokines actually cause insulin resistance within your fat tissue or your muscles or in exactly your liver by inhibiting your insulin signals. Number 7 is negative methylation. So I am a firm believer in epigenetics, and epigenetics is the study of how your environment or behaviors can change and affect your DNA or your genes, right? A chemical reaction in the body in which small molecules, they change the small molecules, they form a group. It's called a methyl group or methylation. And this gets added to your DNA or your proteins. So when you have methylation within the body that's affecting your cells negatively, it affects your DNA sequence of that gene, and it turns that gene off so that you're not able to make those proteins, is what I keep talking about. So it results in that obesity. It results in that cardiovascular disease. It forms negative amino acids called homocysteines, which you need, which they say is irreversible, but you need a lot of folate to actually return that back. And I've also done a post on folate before. And folate, you can get a lot from sea moss and other different things as well. So I'm going to do a whole post on folate as well, because it's very helpful, especially in prenatal care for mothers, as it helps with neurotransmitters and the nervous system within the body, and also helps within the central nervous system. So I'm going to go over folate as well in another video. And then last but not least, we have autophagy. Autophagy is my favorite, and I get it from fasting. So autophagy is basically a process that our body uses, our natural rhythm uses to help get rid of bad cells. So your cells basically make a lot of crap, dead mitochondria, lipids that are dysfunctional, right? And we have to get those cleared out. If not, they just get stuck and stored, and then it causes a lot of metabolic dysfunction, and we're not able to process a lot of that. And then we have insulin resistance. So if your body is not performing autophagy, your cells are not renewing themselves, right? And you're not keeping yourself healthy by that. So we slow and reduce this process every time through junk foods little sleep, not enough fasting, not enough times in between meals. There's even something called stage 4 sleep, right? And it surpasses REM sleep. And this is where your CSF or your cerebral spinal fluid comes in through your lymphatic system, and it washes the brain every time you go to sleep. So when you're sleeping, the pressure inside your skull goes down, and that causes the tissues of your brain to contract slightly, right? This every time you sleep deeply, making waves of fluid, and they carry away the junk through your lymphatic system through this brain mechanism, right? So the brain has no room for junk because the brain stores the most mitochondria, right? Your brain needs the most mitochondria to work. So that's why your brain is always working at overtime. And that's why your brain can also become the most easily damaged. So when people have lack of sleep, you're also not being able to metabolize a lot of that, or your metabolism function is not able to process that mitochondria. You're not able to make enough and store enough and burn enough energy. And that's why your brain doesn't end up working. That then goes down to the liver, goes down to the digestive system through the enteric nervous system. So it's all hand in hand. This is why exercise is also so key and important, because exercise is actually one of the drivers of making new mitochondria throughout the body. So we need that sleep, we need that exercise, we need those good omega-3s, EPAs, ALAs. We need, like I said, good exercise, sleep, meditation to calm our nervous system down and stress so that we're able to metabolize. And we need enough time in between meals. We have to protect our gut. Prebiotics and probiotics like kefir. I'm losing the name. Kefir. It's the bacteria cell for probiotics. I'm losing the name of it. all those different things we need to be able to metabolize and function on a better basis. It all starts within our gut. It all starts within our liver. So by us at least being able to kind of understand the 8 subcellular pathologies that I've listed, we're able to understand it on a cellular level, how our body is then not able to process certain things. But like I said, even if the information was all overwhelming, it all starts with the food within our body, by what we're putting inside our body. One of the quotes I heard over the weekend is, what we feed ourselves in private is what shows up in public or on the exterior. And that's essential. It's crucial, because we need to understand that this is not a game. This is our temple. This is how our body functions. This is how our temple navigates through this plane every single day, is that we have to be able to understand how to sustain it. We sustain it with God's nutrients, with God's source key vitamins and minerals, and all those things that encompasses within food, staying away from those processed foods and being able to take longer times in between meals and getting sleep, as you see, also cleanses the system and builds new cells. And that's what we need, is a regeneration of new mitochondria, of new epithelial cells every single day. So there you have it. That's all I got for y'all today on the Solar Healing Show. I appreciate y'all. If y'all have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I really appreciate y'all for tuning in. Peace.